Dear Diary, I didn't know if I was going to record today. Okay, so I didn't really know if I was going to record a part 2 to the 404 series, but here we are. I decided that I was going to do 404 part 2. This is going to be called Reconciliation. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, for a long time, I really thought that reconciliation was it's like a practice ritual in a way, not really like a ritual, but you have your routine that you have a routine that's set, and you follow that. It's kind of like you apologize, you explain yourself, you kind of like hug it out, and then after you do all that, you're just supposed to feel like lighter, like a load has been lifted, and yeah, everything is kind of supposed to be resolved after that. And for me, it didn't really happen like that. It was kind of more so like I didn't I didn't have like a clean and sincere moment. I didn't feel like I was making things right. It was just kind of like sometimes I didn't want to make it obvious, and it was like reconciliation doesn't always come with a closure. It's just like it didn't come with anything obvious at all. It's just kind of like you sit with what happened, you resist the urge to fix it too fast because I didn't want to try to fix it and then end up, suppressing another emotion, and I didn't want to rush to apologize to ease the tension that was there, but not pretending it hurt is something I didn't want to do again because I don't want to pretend something's okay so I can feel normal again because it did hurt. And like I said, I don't want to lie to myself and suppress something. And I think part of what made it hard is because you realize that obviously the situation will change you, and in that change, you kind of shave off a part of yourself because it's like um, you're you're kind of having to come to terms that you you're coming to terms with how you are in your grief um, with the situation because you don't really notice that you're changing until you look back and you realize where you're at right now in this moment. So I think that reconciliation is also about meeting yourself where you're at right now in the current moment and not trying to force yourself to be where you want to be at. Um, and I've been taking my time with it because I know that if I were to rush into trying to be okay with everything, that something is going to end up getting buried, and buried emotions just lead to suppression. And I don't want to have emotions that just disappear. I want to be able to wait and take the time for what needs to be said. And I mean, it can be okay without actually being okay. You have to learn to move forward without staying in that situation for too long. And I feel like that was probably the hardest part for me because I knew that I wasn't going to move from it too fast, but I also don't want to just sit there and harp on something that's a minimal issue. So honestly, it's moving forward for me. It was I know I had to realize what all I was carrying from this, and then I just had to move. It was very slow, kind of uncomfortable at first, and then once you learn to be honest with yourself about it, it just gets a little messy. Then once you clean it up, you're good. You're done. So I'm pretty sure I'm finally okay with that. I'm pretty good with it. But it's in this you're exposed to stuff that you're not really used to. I have did a lot of experiences with me and Theo. We had a few things that we did, and it's out of the normal for me, and moments I didn't really feel in control. And like I said in the last one, I really like the last part. I really like being in control of stuff, and it's kind of something that I hold on to. It makes me feel grounded, feel safe. So losing that, even if it was for a brief moment, um, it's not really easy for me internally, and it's I don't know. In the middle of that, there is a moment, not a conversation to fix everything. It wasn't an apology, and it definitely wasn't a resolution, but it was just a moment, to be in the same space. There's not really any resentment, any anger, no pressure to pretend that you're okay. You're just the presence of Theo and everything like that. And in a way, the moment itself that we had, it was really rejuvenating. Um, But apart with it being like that, because kind of like a breath that I've been holding on to forever, I finally just get to like let it out, exhale. But I think that a part, like the complicated part of that, is the temptation to go back to like what we were before everything had happened. So I don't know. It's kind of like I want to reach for what's familiar because it's like I know what we had was there and all of this stuff is there, and it's like I feel it just pulling. But at the same time, it's like I've been over here for so long, and to be able to resist the urge to go back to something that's familiar just because it feels easy, you just sometimes have to resist that. And I don't want to think that like one good moment is supposed to make everything okay, because it's not. I'm still like salty about the situation, but it's progress. So um I think that was a pretty hard part, just confusing like a tempting moment of comfort with something that's supposed to be safe, because even if it was good intentions from Theo, I still really don't feel safe with the situation just because of how I had felt initially the first time this had happened. So I'm just trying to learn the difference with reminding myself something familiar isn't something that I need to return to. And that doesn't mean that the moment itself isn't like a real moment or like it didn't matter. It's just that when I'm listening to myself now, it's kind of like I can see it, the situation, in a way that I didn't see it before. Like it's not anything I need to hold on to, something that needs to be fixed immediately. And even if it does get fixed, it doesn't have to go back to how it was. It can just, I don't know, we can settle something else. And I just know that as comforting as that moment was, at least for me, um, it's not anything I'm going back to, and I'm gonna, force myself to move forward from it. And maybe it's like holding on to truths. You're holding on to both the truth and your alternate reality at the same time, and it's just that something can feel good and not be safe, and something can be healing and still be temporary. And learning to sit with that without running from it was something that I had struggled with these past few weeks, just because like you're so used to something feeling good and you want it to last. You don't want a good feeling to be temporary, especially if you have a safe connection with that good feeling. So that's pretty much what I've been working on. And that's pretty much going to wrap up this episode, or this entry, I should say, wrap up this entry for reconciliation. Just hold on to the truths, even if that's not exactly what you want. Because at the end of the day, you choose to be honest with yourself. That'll always get you further than trying to stay stuck with something that you're familiar with. And I don't know, that's pretty much it. Just being true to yourself, even if the truth doesn't feel as easy, because the familiarity of just being with Theo for that moment, it felt really good. It was really easy, but like, it probably wasn't like something that I just need to hold on to and want more of. Like it's not something that I'm just yearning for all the time. But that pretty much wraps up this entry for today. Um yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be like a 3-part series. I feel like it might be, but I'm pretty sure that there's not gonna be anything else that happens with this, just because like I'm kind of done. But like I'm just glad that it ended off on better terms than it did in part 1 of 404, because it wasn't like the best terms for that um entry. It was just kind of like me just kind of putting out how I felt. But I feel like now, after we like had a moment to sit there and be, you can just really see how much better everything can be when you're not really just forcing anything. You're just living in the moment. But like I said, you got to be honest with yourself, which is something I'm still working on, but we're getting there.